Welcome to WikiAfrica Hour, a monthly live broadcast airing the fresh perspectives of Africa's Wikimedians. It's a space where they share their work and knowledge and digest, through African realities, the global Wikimedia movement. WikiAfrica Hour, the voice of African Wikimedians.
We start with news from Wiki in Africa campaigns. We are thrilled to announce the incredible impact of this year's She Said campaign, where volunteers from around the world have worked tirelessly to amplify women's voices on Wikicode. Some of English highlights: 1,186 new codes added, with 406 existing codes improved. And for the French, 730 new codes added, with 217 existing codes improved. This achievement is a testament to the power of collective effort in ensuring women's representation in knowledge spaces. Thank you to all contributors. And for comprehensive results and more details, visit the meta page. Wiki Loves Africa 2023 ISA campaign is starting from 1st February until 28th. The theme in 2023 was Climate and Weather, aimed at capturing climatic and atmospheric conditions. ISA tool helps you to add better descriptions onto the photographs already uploaded in Wikimedia Commons during the contest so that they are more useful on Wikipedia and Wikidata. There are small prizes to be won, like Internet Bundle or Amazon gift cards worth $50 for first prize and $25 for second prize. Don't forget to go to the link and join the game.
The Wikimedia User Group Nigeria is launching a 2D animation advocacy project to highlight the impact of Wikipedia and its sister projects in Nigeria. This initiative will use engaging stories to celebrate cultural heritage, local languages, and real-life impacts, inspiring greater participation in Wikimedia projects. Volunteer opportunities include storytelling and voiceover, sharing local experiences of Wikipedia's impact, and collaborating with expert animators. So why should you join? It's an opportunity for skill development, recognition, and professional growth, networking with advocates and animators. To apply, visit the bit.ly link on screen now. Lastly, some updates from the Wikimedia Foundation. Maggie Dennis, Vice President of Community Resilience Sustainability, invites all Wikimedians in good standing to the quarterly conversation hour on January 30th at 2000 UTC. Key topics include supporting and defending community self-governance with Jacob Rogers, Deputy General Counsel for the Wikimedia Foundation. It also includes updates on trust and safety, the Universal Code of Conduct, committee support, and human rights. Don't miss the important discussion. To join, write to confirm your attendance and submit your questions. More details and notes from past conversation hours are available on MetaWiki.
Nominations are now open for the 2025 Steward elections. If you are an eligible administrator with cross-wiki experience, now is your chance to step forward and make a difference. The nominations deadline is on 31st January 2025, midnight UTC. Voting begins 6th February 2025 at 14th UTC. Learn more about eligibility and submit your nomination via the guidelines page. Confirmations of existing stewards will occur alongside the elections. Have questions? Reach out to the election committee or check the updates on Meta.
Make sure to visit the WikiAfrica Hour news page on Meta for all relevant links. Enjoy the episode.
Hello everyone, and Happy New Year, because it's our first episode for 2025. But actually, it's the 42nd one since the launch of WikiAfrica Hour. We hope that you all enjoyed your holidays at the end of 2024. We're starting this year with a very special episode titled Offline Wikis, the Need and the Available Options. And we really in the Wikimedia movement are very interested and are very in need to discuss this topic, African Wikimedians, and it's a space to share, to work, and to digest. So it's the right place to discuss topics like this, especially if we have a very experienced host for this topic. Our host for today has nearly 20 years of teaching and leadership experience across 9 countries. She also works to create transformative learning experiences that equip learners to thrive in our ever-changing 21st century. Today's host is Nichole Saad. Thank you so much, Nichole, for joining us and for accepting the invitation to be the host for today. We know also that Nichole has founded Open Learning Collective to help organizations around the world develop innovative education programs and to empower teachers with effective training. So Nichole not only joining us today as a guest host, but actually she will our interviewee in the focus section at the end of the conversation as well. So stay with us till the end. Again, thank you very much, Nichole. We are very interested to this episode. I will go now backstage listening to the episode with the audience. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Donia. I'm really happy to be here. It's a really great topic for an episode, and I'm so excited to talk to our guests today. So today's episode is on offline wikis. What is the need, and what are the available options? And so today we're going to explore the need for offline solutions across the African continent, the problems related to the Wikimedia Movement strategy that offline solutions can help solve, and the options and how people can get involved. So it's really great to see everyone here, and I'm excited to also hear from the audience. So if you're tuning in, please share your comments and questions in the chat. We'll definitely address them as we go. So now I would like to introduce our guests for today. So maybe each guest can say a brief introduction about themselves. So let's start with, we have Tim Moody, Maxwell, Beganim, and Stephan for today. And who would anyone like to go first? Should I call on you?
I can go.
Yeah, Stephan, would you like to go first?
Yes, I'm Stephan, and I'm the co-founder of Kiwix, and I'm based in Switzerland. And those are not real Kiwi, by the way.
They're not real?
No.
Oh,
sorry.
That's so sad. Maxwell, would you like to go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maxwell, Beganim all the way from Ghana, and currently I'm the African coordinator for the Open Knowledge Foundation Network, and also an educator and a grassroots mobilizer and a tech enthusiast. Thank you so much for having me here.
And Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Tim Moody. Hi to everybody. I live in Toronto, and I've been working with Internet in a Box for quite some years, and by extension with groups around the world, including a number of places in Africa, but not only.
Thanks, everyone. I'm so happy to have you all here in this conversation. So why don't we jump into the first topic? So the first topic today is about the need for offline solutions. So if you let me just briefly share some data, I think some of you know, definitely Stephan, you know that I worked with the Offline Internet Consortium last year to produce a report on offline internet. And so that report, we shared a lot of data and a lot of insights into the work that's going on around the world to support offline solutions. And so just to start off, with some data from that report to ground us, now half of the world is not meaningfully connected to the internet. So despite a global connectivity rate of around 63%, the least developed countries have only 20% internet usage rate. And this risks permanent economic disparity that is dominated by a few technologically advanced economies. And these digital divides are, they're not just one thing. There's digital divides based on gender, based on age, based on location, rural versus urban, etc. And in 2023, the International Telecommunications Union reported that only 20% of women in low-income countries use the internet as compared to 34% of men, for example. So my question to you all, and we can, just go, one by one, and then, if people want to chime in with, with some additional insights, and we can do that too. So my question for you is, what do these digital divides look like across the African continent, especially in the communities that you work with directly? And in your experience, what is the need for offline accessible tools in your work? So maybe Stephan, you can go first.
Yes, very certainly. Well, I've got a very meta view of what can happen because I provide the solution. I'm also living outside of Africa, and so it's more like I get feedback from all over the place. And one of the main learnings I have is that there are many, many ways that people can have no access to internet. There's obviously a matter of cost, like you cannot afford it, but a matter of resources, as in like, I don't know, the cable doesn't come to my middle of nowhere place in the desert. But also there can be censorship. And when I say censorship, it's not always the government's bad. I mean, there's never a good reason for censorship. But for instance, I remember in 2017, in Ethiopia, they cut off the internet there's a big exam for university entrance, and they wanted to stave off any kind of like cheating. So they say, okay, no internet, so you cannot look up the answers. But that worked. That was like, kind of like hammer and a nail thing. And nobody had the internet while a small minority were doing their university exams. So in that case, they obviously had, there was a big need for offline access. So it can be anywhere.
Thank you, Stephan. Tim, would you like to share?
Yeah, I mean, just to echo what Stephan said, I mean, I think most of us who've been working to provide solutions are pretty convinced that there's a need. Otherwise, we wouldn't have spent a lot of time. And it's not a binary thing. There's internet or there's no internet, as Stephan said. There can be no internet, there can be slow internet, or there can be expensive internet, all of which mean that for most usages, especially to get reference material like from the wikis, the things that Kiwix does for us, we wouldn't want to have to pull that information in from the internet because it just would not work for us. And so having the ability to have offline materials, we sort of take a priori that's a thing we need to do. So I think your report pretty well says it, and I doubt that there's anyone here that doesn't agree with it.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And definitely the whole hypothesis of the report is that connectivity is a spectrum. It's not just a binary, you have it or you don't have it. Maxwell, I'd love to hear from you, especially related to your work with communities in Africa. Like, what's your experience? And we have one more guest joining us, so I'll introduce them after Maxwell shares.
Okay, thank you very much. And Nichole, I have to first acknowledge the work of Kiwix and then Internet in a Box. And Internet in a Box. So as a grassroots mobilizer, I started Kiwix in senior high schools, and what we realized was the gap that existed. And when I say the gap, the digital divide in terms of accessibility and all that. So as a grassroots mobilizer, what hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. So what I'm saying is, because of the gap, I decided to first look and work with schools within the senior high level, and we realized that majority of the students that we are working with do not have access because it is not permitted to use phones in the schools, and also where they have computer in their schools, the computers are either are not working, or they don't really have content that would engage them. And that was also one of the challenges that we found. But solutions like KWix came in to really help, because we went in there to actually put KWix out there, train teachers. So it was multi kind of thing that we were doing. We wanted to train them in digital literacy, to first understand the concept of digital literacy, and then provided the solution of KWix, where they were able to model what ordinarily they would have gotten on the internet, but this time without internet. And it became great resource, because the teachers really appreciated the content that we had, and most of the teachers even accepted, and they rather called for training them first before we trained the students on it. So it became very interesting. And I think it was KWix, great support from Stephan from KWix for providing us all the learnings and all the headway. So that's how the project started. And then from the senior high level, we went to the basic level, and we realized at the basic level there was also that challenge, but we decided to move on and on and on, and we've been able to get that impact by training them on digital literacy, and also giving them the solutions that will help them to access information that ordinarily would be online, offline.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that experience and emphasizing that you can't just throw technology at people. You have to give them the skills and tools to use it. And we'll touch on that a little bit more later in the conversation. Donia, is Michael still here?
Here, but not visible, it seems.
Okay. Hi, Michael.
He's having some camera problems.
Oh, okay. Michael, can you speak even if we can't hear you? So I think this is like underlying the points of the conversation today.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a connectivity issue.
That we all, around the world have connectivity issues, and it's definitely not a binary. Even in, like, I live in a very rural, urban area in the U.S., and I have internet, but I can't get a cell phone bar to save my life in my house. So sometimes that's a problem. I have to take my dog for a walk to have a call. So just, underlying the entire purpose of the conversation today is that these are things that, most people around the world have to deal with, some much more than others. So I'll jump into my second question in this first conversation topic, and when Michael is able to connect, then we'll bring him in. So my second question is related to some things that were said at the October 2023 Second Committee of the UN General Assembly, where they emphasized a necessary mindset shift about how to design, implement, and measure the impact of technology. They had a focus. They said that we need to focus on the problems technology is intended to solve rather than on the technology itself. And this idea was also emphasized in the 2023 Global Education Monitoring Report titled Technology and Education, a Tool on Whose Terms, which stated that there's not enough data on technology's impact on learning outcomes to justify the investment over other solutions. So my question for you all is, how would you define the problems we are trying to solve with offline solutions in the Wikimedia movement? Do we have access to the right technology to solve these problems right now, or is further innovation necessary? And perhaps specifically, how do offline solutions contribute to the Wikimedia movement strategy? So Maxwell, would you like to go first?
Yes, I would like to go first. So I think that with the offline solutions and having access, the problems are multifaceted, and just as I said, and it's even in Ghana, for example, because we live in different areas, the urban, peri-urban, and then the rural communities, we realize that the problems are very different. If you go into the urban places, even with the urban places, when it comes to access to some of these things, it becomes very difficult. And within the Wikimedia movement, where we in fact, the overall understanding of the movement is to make sure that information is easily accessible to all. I think at the moment, we do not have all the right and necessary solutions or technology that can help solve all these issues, but then there's always a step. So for example, within the movement where I got to understand Wikis, which have played a very fundamental role in terms of giving students access to one, not only learn to edit but also be able to consume information, because there's information out there which can be accessed offline from an online site. So I think that technology is very key. So at the end of the day, what we are doing within the movement is telling them, so as part of our training, the digital literacy focuses on Wikipedia, what Wikipedia is, how they can join Wikipedia, how Wikipedia works, how they can train to be how they can train to be Wikipedian. So I think the process starts from there to build up to where they can now read and access information and understand the architecture behind this technology. And I think it's a plus for the movement as well. And I think that there is more we can do in terms of these kind of resources or technology that are available, how we can use it. But first, to really understand the core of the problem, because some students that we engage, we realize that they have access to internet not in the school but outside the school. That means when they go to their respective homes, but the challenge is they do not even know where to go for information that can help them to study. And that was what our digital literacy training and Wikis training was seeking to do. And at the end of the day, we realized that that is something that we can really do as part of the whole ecosystem, understanding the Wikimedia movement, the processes and all that. Again, the last point that I want to make, if you look at the structure of the movement, it is more focused on editors, how we can edit and edit and edit. That is one aspect of it. But I think it's about time we look beyond just editing and also look at where we can take them from position A to position B through the architecture or the design of the movement. So that's what I want to say.
Yeah, thank you very much for those insights. And you should know that I obviously agree with you, because when I was at the Wikimedia Foundation, my team produced Reading Wikipedia in the Classroom, which it was meant to help do some of those things that you talked about. And it's a resource that's still available for anyone who's watching on Meta Wiki. It's you can just look up Reading Wikipedia in the Classroom, and it's available in 14 languages. And there's lots of other resources and tools and insights to touch on this digital literacy piece that Maxwell is emphasizing. Tim, would you like to share your response to the questions? Let me know if I should repeat them.
Yeah, actually, it's in the chat, so I can see it. There are at least 3 questions in there that I could respond to. I'll take the first one on question, do we have the right technology? We do and we don't. I mean, you could have really good technology and it would cost more than anybody would want to spend. And you could also have more what we tend to have, which is inexpensive technology in order to be able to spread it out more broadly. So yes, there are definitely gaps in what we have. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you mentioned the question of measurement. How are we doing? And actually, a number of years ago, the Wikimedia Foundation sponsored a pilot in Nigeria where they put about a dozen internet in a box into various regions. And for those of us who sit in in an ivory tower and just kind of build these things and use them, but not in a harsh environment where you might have, temperatures or other kinds of environmental problems. It was kind of interesting to see. First of all, they wanted to measure how much were they used, what pages did people look at from the Wikipedia and things like that. And there were even problems evaluating that, because first of all, we were using a Raspberry Pi as an inexpensive computer. Well, it doesn't keep time. The only way it gets time is it knows time at some point, and then it just keeps adding to that. When you shut it off, it doesn't add to it. So now when you try and go back and look at a couple months of usage and try and figure out which pages were used on a daily basis, a day isn't a day, because the timekeeping of the device itself is inaccurate. And one of the things we did actually was made it so that if you're using one of these devices and you attach to a phone or a laptop that we believe keeps the time, we actually let that update the time in the device to try and solve that problem. But at that time, we hadn't solved that. And then also, there were some that came back, they're just completely fried. I don't know what happened. The SD card was completely charred. It was almost like they had had a small fire. And so, you know, there's a big difference between the places that this technology gets to, where people are actually trying to use it, and the places where we're sitting when we spend time on them.
Wow, yeah, thanks for those insights. So I would summarize that in saying that we still need new solutions and innovations, and that you know, we don't have all the necessary technology to solve the problems yet. And small fires, that's pretty shocking. That's interesting to hear.
I mean, that's a guess. I didn't see the fires, but I did see that the cards had been damaged.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Stephan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree and disagree with what's been said. The point where I disagree is that we do not need new technologies. We have the technologies. We know the concepts. We know where we want to go. We know we should not focus on the connectivity itself, but the content that it brings. And the solution is actually making it available offline. So we have that basic technology here. Now it can get better. It can be more resistant to heat or whatnot, or easier to transport. We can do incremental updates so that you don't need to re-download the whole wiki from one year to the other, but just like the tiny little changes that happen. Okay, that's fine. That's improvement. That's not a major technological change. I think one of the main problems we have, however, in approaching the issue, and I say not us, but like, you know, the wider world or the UN, as you mentioned earlier, is kind of like survivor bias, as in the point of view of those that make those decisions, like we have the internet, we have the connectivity, we have the cables, and therefore we need to bring those cables and that connectivity to those who do not have it. Like it worked for us, it's going to work for them. But what they do not realize is that the top half that's having good internet connectivity today is rich. And they're applying rich people's solution to poor people. It's not going to work. So you need to find something else. And that's where offline comes in, because it says, okay, it's a different approach to the same problem, but that's more in line with, you know, what they can do, what folks can actually afford. So you need to have that approach. Like looking, you know, everyone writes a book as in like, I've become rich, so do the same as I did and you will become rich too. And then you try to set up your own business, but it's an entirely different business and you do not become rich because, you know, they had that once in a lifetime opportunity doing that exact app at the exact time. And that is the thing that worked. So survivor bias is real and it's not useful. Now, coming back to what Maxwell said, it's very, very important. There is a thing in the movement where we see things as Wikimedians because most of us are Wikimedians. I enjoy editing Wikipedia and so should everyone. Well, it's kind of like having a discussion with someone that likes football, I mean soccer, and you actually do not like soccer. No matter what they say, it's still, you know, it's like 22 people on the ball and it's fun up to a point, but not that much. But what is common to everyone is that we bring knowledge to people that need it. And we should see users as consumers of knowledge, people that need that knowledge. So do they need to have the whole Wikipedia about everything else because someday they want to, I don't know, write about Spanish politics or Tibetan history? Maybe, and it's fun to click and I love it personally. But on a day-to-day basis, maybe we can actually have more snackable contents, as in like you're in a classroom, here's your curriculum, Wikipedia in a classroom, but you know, I guess if you're in a classroom and you're a teacher, you probably don't want kids to check out like football or, you know, movie star articles. You need to be able to consider Wikipedia not as a Wikipedia, but as a sum of all human knowledge. And depending on the use cases, you bring different subsets of that knowledge, and it is fine. In the same vein, the Wiktionary is, I think, the greatest Wikimedia project that is underused, because a dictionary is literally something that you want to have in your pocket and that is made for offline use. That is literally something that everyone wants to use, particularly in Africa, where people are very much every day confronted with like 2 or 3 languages, you need a dictionary. You need an offline dictionary, particularly in the settings. So we need to think with that kind of framework, which is like, okay, what is the user actually needing? And then take it from there. Not the other way, like, oh, here's my life, and I'm going to, make people live my own life. It just doesn't work.
Thanks so much for that answer, Stephan. I think those are really, really important points. And I mean, as someone who came to the open movement from the education sector, one of the main things that I was interested in was curriculum alignment. Like, how can we get teachers the content that they need that's aligned with what they're required to teach in the classroom, so that they don't have to spend, teachers' time is very precious. And how can we use their time wisely so they're not having to, search for, specific articles that are aligned to the curriculum that they have to teach. So yeah, I agree with a lot of the points that you made. Maxwell says he has an example to share, so I'm going to pass the floor to Maxwell right now. Thank you.
All right. So the example, as I perfectly agree with Stephan. So in the senior high schools that we went, what we did was the content that we took to this school, these schools were based on the subjects that they were doing. So for example, we had chemistry, we had physics, we had biology, we had mathematics from Wikipedia. So these were areas under the topics that were being studied under the school, and that helped us to streamline what was supposed to go into the classroom. And that even made the teachers very, very, very excited, because as a biology teacher, he had content on biology that he could use. And then with the same methodology, we were able to train the students to understand that these are the content that they can use, and also train them on the fact that if they want more, or they want to go beyond just biology, physics, chemistry, or the subjects that they are doing, we had to show them the process that they had to get. So that's just an example that I wanted to share. And also there is a Sopala project that we are implementing in Ghana, quite similar to what we are doing. We are using the Raspberry Pi for teacher and student engagement that can access or record some of this content. So these are just the examples that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Maxwell. And we're really excited that we finally got Michael in our chat, in our conversation. So can you do just a quick introduction, Michael? And then the question that we're looking at right now is, what are the problems we're trying to solve in the Wikimedia movement with offline solutions? Do we have the right technology to solve these problems? And how do these technologies contribute to the Wikimedia movement strategy? So I'll pass the floor to you. We're really excited to have you here. Oh, I don't think we can hear you. It looks like we're still having some technical difficulties. Michael, are you able to type in the chat? I think it started working there for just a second. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for being patient with our technical difficulties. I promise it's going to be worth it. We have some really great minds in the conversation here today. So if we just absolutely can't get Michael's sound, I would be happy to read your answer if you want to type it in the chat, because I think we would really love your perspective. Okay, while we're doing that, if the audience watching today, if you have any thoughts or questions, can you share them with us now, and we'll address those while we're waiting. I see there's some interesting comments in the chat.
Yeah, Chantil has very good, interesting experience to share.
So
I'd like to hear more actually, because one of the problems we have is access to other content. So, like, lots of people tell us that Wikipedia is good, but it's like background information for everything. But in schools, you need to have school materials. And we found that a lot of governments are not super keen, or, well, maybe because they're not expecting also the request on sharing ready to use materials that can go offline, online, whatever. So based on what Chantilal said, I'd be curious to hear how they approached actually, because there's a discussion component, stakeholder engagement issue as to, okay, hey, Mr. Minister, can you give me your school content so I can use it offline? So I'd be curious to know more about that. If anyone on the panel has that experience, then that'd be even greater.
So, Stephan, I'll just come in. This is from the works that we did previously. So, as part of getting content, what we decided to do was to get in touch with teachers, because some of the teachers have already written notes, which is very common, and we wanted to put this in a digital format where teachers would have easy access to, and then the students will still have access to once they have platforms that they can access, like Kwix on their computer labs and all. In fact, this would even broaden the scope. When they are out of school, they can still have access to teacher content and teacher notes. So that's where we started. It is very difficult sometimes working with government for them to really give out some of these things, but to get to the teachers who have already access to some of these things, it helps. Lastly, so I worked on something that we wanted to put on Kwix, that's past questions, which is really a big deal in Ghana, because when students are going to write exam, they rely on past or previous questions. But the question again was, is it open to put it in such format? So we started having that conversation, and I was able to gather some, and we tried to put it in such format so that the students can have access to it. And I think it has to even go beyond just text, but we need to also look at game-based learning, how we can remodify some of this content in an offline game that students can use, because trends of learning is changing. So I think this is how the conversation should also start going, or the trend that we need to start looking at. If we have the content, how can we make the content very engaging for students to learn? I'm a teacher myself, so these are some of the things that I'm personally working on.
Can you hear me? It's Tim.
Yes,
My image seems to be frozen, but if you can hear me, I'd like to pick up on that, and also what Shanti was saying. I mean, this conversation has been very focused on Wiki and education, and there are, of course, other areas in which offline content, medicine is one of them that we've worked with a lot. But to the question of getting government originated content, it's a big problem, and we've tried it. You mentioned the alignment of external content with the teaching curriculum. That's a big problem, and you will get some resistance to getting government materials, because the teacher says, I already have to do all this stuff, and now you want me to do this other stuff as well. So that is a real problem, and we could use more alignment. But just to come to what Stephan said about, there is other material besides the Wikipedia and the various wiki projects. Wiktionary is great, Voyage, all those kind of things have a lot of material, but these are mostly content that you consume. Then there's the question of interactive content. Khan Academy comes to mind. So one of the things that Internet in the Box does is it adds the interactive Khan Academy either directly or through an application called Colibri. I've also recently been working with a group in Cameroon, and they're trying to document languages that are basically, they have a problem with the possibility of going extinct. There are not enough speakers, so they're actually creating content. So they video people, native speakers speaking those languages, and then they upload them to Internet in the Box in order to have students and other interested parties. They're actually in a refugee camp to be able to access that material. So there's a broad variety of content that's not just strictly wiki content. The idea of editing, Wikifundi and other ways of editing offline goes in that direction as well, where there's more interaction with the content than just consuming it. But there are a lot of different applications, and we include some of them to try and give people, students and others, the ability to interact and not just consume.
Yeah, I think all of those points are extremely important. And I, 100% agree that, teachers' time is very precious. And also government oversight of teachers is sometimes really intense, and trying to get them to, for example, use a resource that's not the official government textbook can be very challenging, for one. Two, if they don't see that it's exactly aligned to the curriculum, that could be, an impediment. So there's all of these points that it goes, beyond just do we have the technology? Do we have the content? Do we have, and this touches a little bit on the report, and that, it's a spectrum of connectivity, and there's all of these, pieces that interplay with each other. And so I really thank everyone for sharing all of those insights. One thing I wanted to share with you all, I'm not sure if you're aware of this project that my team supported a few years ago called Wikidata for Education. I'll put the link in the chat. But we worked with the government in Ghana to align the national curriculum. Maxwell, you might have been involved. I'm not quite sure. To align the national curriculum.
Yeah, I was involved with, so I participated in some of the sessions where Justice Wikimedia Ghana pioneered the project. It was an amazing one. Yeah, I was part. Thank you.
Yeah, so that, is part of the idea of how to find solutions to this curriculum alignment problem. I also know that Calibri does something similar with their platform. Learning Equality is something similar with Calibri, the learning platform.
Yeah, so Calibri is on Internet in the Box. So
yes,
they're bundled together.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to the next topic before we run out of time. So thank you also for the audience to share in the chat. We really love to hear your thoughts and questions, so please keep them coming. So the next question I have for you is really on kind of the global conversation around offline solutions and, within our Wikimedia movement too, because this is obviously a Wikimedia community that we're talking about today, is there seems to be a little bit of a lack of consideration for offline solutions when we're thinking of, trying to solve the problems that we're addressing in the movement strategy, or, global conversations around, global goals for health and education and climate change and these types of things. So for example, when I was doing the offline internet report, I looked at all kinds of political frameworks, international frameworks for universal connectivity. And I saw offline solutions mentioned once in a very, very small piece in like a 500-page document. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on why do you think it is that we kind of ignore these solutions as a global community, as a Wikimedia community? And what do you think that we should do to, bring them more to the forefront and really, think about what impact they can have on our goals? So do we have Michael with us? He's still offline, I think. Okay. Tim, would you like to share?
Sorry, I was fussing with hardware. I didn't fully get the question.
That's okay.
My camera, for some reason, isn't working, so I'm trying to figure that out. But if you say again, yes.
No worries. I'll say it again. So my question is, why do you think offline solutions are, rather ignored in our Wikimedia community and the global community trying to solve like these big problems? And what should we do to bring them more to the forefront and demonstrate their impact and get people involved?
Yeah, I think it's get in their face. I mean, after the project we did in Nigeria, the Wikimedia Foundation said, we don't think we want to do any more offline projects. And then Kiwix prevailed and actually has gotten support, and Wikimedicine has gotten some support, and now actually the Wikipedia store is actually selling Internet in the Box. So we have come a ways in getting support from that, but they still really think, Kiwix has to handle the fact that everything is really aimed at online devices, and the material that's rendered out from the wiki, is difficult to make work offline. Kiwix does it pretty well, but they don't. The Wikimedia Foundation doesn't exactly make that easy, and I don't think they really talk much about offline as much as like you said. There's a lot of people who do not have an adequate internet connection, and you need you need access to that information, and I don't think the Wikimedia Foundation puts as much emphasis on it as they should. Let me just say that.
Thank you for that point. Stephan, what are your thoughts?
Well, Dan in the comments has a very good point, which is there's no money to be made with offline people if you're on an online business. But I'm not blaming businesses. I mean, they're here to survive, and okay, fine. But the problem is that if you're offline, no one knows that you exist. So the problem is that if they don't know you exist, then they're not looking for a solution to help you, right? So the thing that happened with Internet in Box and Kiwix to a large extent is that we were part of the movement. I mean, James was like on the freaking board. So that brought the offline population or the offline need to life to the powers that be at the foundation, and but we're still an afterthought because James is gone, but we're trying hard and we're not letting them go, and so they as much as they would want to try, and they're not trying, they're very helpful, but if they would want to try to forget us, then we would not let that be. So there's a thing that we need to have figures that speak for the offline world. And if not, then there's so much happening. I don't blame anyone. It's just like the way the world is. You need to have something to represent the problem, and then people will start looking for a solution. But if there's no problem, or if you can't see the problem, then there's no problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. You have to see the problem to find solutions to the problem. Actually, I just said this to someone yesterday. Exactly that. I was like, you can't solve a problem if you're not actually looking at it, if you refuse to see it. So that's exactly. We have some good comments in the chat. Data protection is a concern. Someone else said that, Jan said that it's neglected in the community because most regular users expect the WMF to take care of all infrastructure, online or offline. That's a really interesting point. So Maxwell, what are your thoughts? And if you feel like also commenting on any of the audience thoughts, okay. Go for it.
So my thoughts are that within the movement, I said earlier that the focus is on the metrics. What are the editors writing? So that is the focus of the foundation, looking at editors, not really what the way people consume information. And it also becomes very difficult to track or use metrics to track whether within the offline space people are really reading it or not. But let me take you back a bit. So when I got trained to understand Kiwix with my colleague, we were both teachers, and we really embraced it because we really understood the context of what it really means to have information offline, because some of us were already readers and we appreciated that content. So why don't we look at that within the context of operating in our senior high schools? And that was the edge. But then the question is how many Wikimedians or Wikipedians are enthused or have this to run with, and it becomes very difficult because we were not supported. When we started, it was just by passion we decided to go into schools to do this. So I think the focus of all this also lies behind the fact that profits are not making, and even if you are writing project for proposals, you need to state the metrics, how many students are reading, how many students, what have been read and all that. So that presents a huge challenge. But I think as a movement and as a community, we also need to diversify and look at real meaningful projects that we can do. Now, based on the KWICs that we started, now there is also a project that we've started, which is the Sopala, which is by Sabir and Moodle Box. We are trying to integrate KWICs and all these offline solutions where we can broadcast information offline for students to be able to access with their tablet, with their computers and all that. But then this time the students can be tracked. We can access their performance. We can set questions on Moodle Box for them to, so that is a step, but we wouldn't have gotten there if we didn't really pilot and understand the actual issue. So we don't have to stop because others are not. We need to also look at how others are doing it and how we can adapt and adopt within the context that we operate. And I think once we begin to do that, we can scale and then we can really get the traction that we need. It's not all about profit. It's also important that we look at the context.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that, among the conversation that we had today about, are these solutions overlooked or disregarded? Some of the main points are that there's kind of a disconnect between the Wikimedia Foundation and the community over responsibility of who has ownership over these things. There isn't enough, perhaps, incentive because you can't make money off of them. And there's like a general lack of information kind of widely about the needs and use cases. And one thing that you said, Maxwell, that I thought was really interesting was about the metrics and, how do you explain the outcomes? And so that sounds like something that a really big point for advocacy is, how do we know that we're doing well if you can't say 10,000 readers logged in today? And that was a point that I had a lot of, I don't know, I think I was a little bit of a annoying, I'm trying to find a metaphor, but I'm not getting one. I was a little bit annoying about how we talk about metrics while I was at the foundation, and that we're really just kind of measuring what I call, when I was, working in the education sector, butts and seats metrics. I would, at some point I was working as an evaluator, and I would go into classrooms and the measure of success was, are the kids in the chairs? That's it. And I saw that they weren't learning anything, but we still marked the project as successful. And I think we have a little bit of that issue in the Wikimedia movement as well, is that, if we have the numbers, we think we're being successful, but we don't necessarily know what the outcomes are, or, how these tools are changing, and what is actually the need, because you might have the numbers, but you might need a different solution to touch on the context. So thank you all for sharing those points. It looks like we have a couple of comments in the chat. The foundation can suggest tools that allow content usage to be tracked or foster collaboration that can help. Thanks, Max, for raising this. So thanks, Ruby, for your comment. Anthony Diaz, that's also a problem we encountered with tracking down the users of the device. We still do it manually, and I hope there will be a tool that can gather data, even numbers of users who accessed it.
We do capture all that, but it's all isolated, right? I mean, nobody could ever feed back 100,000 school worth of that data to the Wikimedia Foundation, even if they captured it, which they could do. I mean, we have tools on Internet in a Box to track usage, and we sort of solved the time problem. So you can get that information. You just probably won't be able to give it to anybody.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just checking the time, and I know that Stephan, you have to leave right on the hour, and we're coming close to it. So the third conversation topic that I had was pretty deep. and we might not have enough time for it. So maybe I'll just say, can we, give everyone the platform, to kind of share your final thoughts and important points you want the audience to take away from the conversation. So I'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to, to share. If you think there's any resources that are really important for people to be aware of, we can link them and share them in the chat, in the description. So I'm just going by like who's at the top of my screen. That's like my logic for which order I'm calling people, just so you know. So Tim, you're at the top of my screen. Do you want to share your final thoughts?
I think we've said a lot. I will share a couple of links. Picture's worth 1,000 words, they say. This is basically what you could buy if they had stock, what you could buy on the Wikipedia store today. They've actually sold out, and we're actually getting like 10 to 30 orders a day now. Again, people have mentioned Doc James. He's the mover and shaker on all of that. So that's there. But I will share a link for that if I can get back to where I was. And then if you want to have a look at Internet in the Box, this is one that's kind of like what was done for Congo. And then if you have a question, here are some frequently asked questions and hopefully some answers to them. So I don't know, keen to work with people. And I think on the question of motivation, I don't think the financial things are that much of a motivation, because I think the Wikipedia movement is an ideological thing. And I think I don't know who gives the money to them, because they get a fair amount of money in a year. But I think they probably do it for ideological reasons. I'm not sure how that feeds back to their businesses, because it's not like they get advertising or anything like that. So I think it's a matter of moving the dial ideologically into the area of offline, to see that as part of the ideology of everybody having access to free knowledge, is that the people who don't have the internet have that same right. And it's just an ideological question. It's not, I don't see it as financial. Stephan, maybe you know more than I do, but that's what I see. Anyway, I've said enough.
Well, money is the sinews of war, so I don't know. But I'm not sure I'm second on your list, Nichole, so.
Well, you were called on directly, so don't worry.
Okay.
So I know, Stephan, you have to leave really
Yes,
soon. So do you want to share your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think the important thing is that even though we're working offline, we're not alone, and it makes it even more important to share information and comments and requests for features. I mean, definitely there are things that we are working on, and probably we're not good enough at communicating about it. So we do have a tool that's in the works for Kiwix, the Kiwix hotspot, that does actually track users and time spent on different types of content. It's still a work in progress and it's beta, but it can be tested. So I'll be happy to share if anything. And likewise, if you are in a country where you need other content or specific content offline, then reach out. Maybe we have the tool that's called Zimit that makes it available, and it's getting better every time. That makes it easier to scrape other websites, and we can package it and put it on a hotspot or even in the Kiwix library. So I think it's important that everyone talks, and that conversation is very important. So I'm very happy that I actually attended and that I was invited in the first place. So I would like to thank everyone for having me here today. And that will be actually my formal goodbye, because I need to rush out. But thank you very much appreciated. It was awesome. Thank you, question people and comment people, because you made very good points in the comments. I read them all and I loved it. And hello, Ruby and Rafi and everyone else that I know. And have a good evening or day, depending on where you are. Bye.
Thanks, Stephan, and also definitely wiki love to the folks in the comments. Maxwell, do you want to share your final thoughts?
Yes. I want to share my final thoughts, but I'll first want to thank Otio Boache Champon, who was so behind the project where we were training, all the challenges we went through, and I'm happy to have him here also watching. But then what I want to say is it always starts from somewhere. So just as myself and Otio understood the context as teachers and we wanted to do this, it really helped us to actually scale and then integrate. In fact, what I even wanted to say was the project had digital literacy, environmental literacy, and then the keywords. That is how we decided to implement the project. And now it has scaled, and now we are doing the Sopala, which is with Sabia and Moodlebox. So we are trying to use a Raspberry Pi to train teachers on how they can utilize it. And now we've piloted it in about 4 different regions that our paper has also been published on MIT Open Learning, which I'll share later. So I'll just say that we need to work together and collaborate and see how effective offline solutions can be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maxwell. And for those in the comments, do you have any final thoughts on the conversation topics today that you would like to share? Please post them in the chat. Ruby says there's a high demand for online resources in our schools. To make it effective, we need to involve teachers in the process to make it impactful. 100% agree. I know we focused this conversation a lot on education, probably because many of us in the call today have worked strongly in education, have a background in education, but obviously there's a lot of use cases beyond education for offline solutions and offline wikis. So if anyone in the chat wants to call out other projects besides education related ones that you think are useful for the audience to know, please do so. And Tim, Maxwell, if you know of any projects beyond education that the audience should be aware of, maybe we should call those out before we end the conversation today, because I think the topic is offline solutions. So I know there's offline solutions for medicine. I'm not sure about other types of activism, but if you have any thoughts, please share.
Well, I mentioned the language recording
Right.
in Cameroon, which I actually think is a very important. There's many languages that have diminishing number of speakers, and they're trying to record. Now, there's a whole academic organization set up to do it, but they get people out to the field, in this case in Cameroon, and then they use an offline appliance like Internet in a Box as a way of recording and sharing that information. So it's kind of education, but it's not really education. And they don't even really care whether they have the Wikipedia on there. So they just really want their own content to get on there and be accessible.
Yeah, that's a good point. Someone in the chat said, wasn't there a project for Wikipedia in prisons? And I believe that was also with Kiwix. And one of the interesting things about the prison use case is that there's a lot of privacy issues with access to the whole internet in prisons, because in the US, and I'm not sure if this is true across the board, but prisoners have the right to privacy. So they have the right for other prisoners not to know what they're in for example. And so curating the content of Wikipedia to remove prisoner details if they're on there it's a really big privacy issue, and that's one of the use cases for the offline solutions, is that you can provide the rest of the content and curate it for those use cases. And Kiwix has worked with some prisons.
That was actually Rachel that did that. Rachel, it's another offline project.
Okay, I know Kiwix did it as well, so it must be more than
they did it in the state of Oregon. I'm not sure just where all they did it. They had 2 or 3, Colorado maybe. They had 2 or 3 states that and they had content that was vetted for inside of a prison, which is a big problem. But they did that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that there's it's a huge need. Obviously, we have a lot of prisons in the US. Haley Nordine says, thank you everyone for the conversation. I work on the mobile apps at Wikimedia Foundation. We're interested to learn how Wikipedia apps can better serve the needs of offline users. Well, great to have you here, Haley. I hope that you got some insights that can help you in your work. And the question is, what tasks do you do on your mobile device that could benefit from more offline support? Maxwell, Tim, do you have any thoughts?
So what tasks? Sorry, can you read that question again? I missed. I was just trying to.
What tasks do you do on mobile specifically that could use offline access on mobile?
I haven't really explored, but just as I said, what we are doing now with the Sopala is to first, because most of the students are now going to have access to tablets within our scope, we will just train them to understand how KWIX functions and also complement it with the Sopala or the Raspberry Pi project that we are doing, so that it goes hand in hand. So we are yet to look at the mobile application for KWIX and then how we can also integrate it. It's a process, but we need to first outline and see how it's going to work within the context. So maybe we can pick this conversation further.
My experience is that doctors, for example, often prefer to access offline information with mobile. Classrooms are more laptop and tablet, but yeah, obviously the idea is that almost everybody has a phone now, so making things mobile friendly is, as they say, start with mobile. So I think definitely people are doing that. KWIX has embraced that, and so I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, thank you. So Wiki Women Camp said geotagging location coordinates while contributing to a photography contest and upload to Commons is a use case for offline mobile support. That sounds super cool. And Haley says thank you. So yeah, appreciate you being here, Haley. I hope this is helpful to your work. Jan says, and pre-downloaded all articles that show on those maps. Very cool ideas. There's a lot of really nice brainstorming going on, and I'm excited that we have a very engaged audience, because that's not like, I've definitely been in these types of things where it's crickets in the comments. So really appreciate everyone sharing your perspective in the comments. Donia, how are we doing for time? Can we read like one or two more comments, or do we have to move on? Moodle Box works great offline and then syncs with the server when available. Thanks, Stan, for that. I love that the stuff going on in the conversation today is like just underlining and emphasizing the points we're trying to make about technology and the need for offline accessible solutions. There's a lot of links coming up in the chat. Does anyone want to share a last thought before we move on to the next section? Box. Yeah, we read that comment. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. Thank you, Maxwell. I really enjoyed having you here with me today to touch base on this conversation around the importance of offline. I mean, it was super interesting for me to engage with this concept through the report that I did for the Offline Internet Consortium. So for those of you in the chat, I think it's linked. If you haven't seen the report, I will recommend having a look at it. It goes into depth, not just on wikis, but like what's the need for offline solutions across the board in relation to access to universal access to connectivity, meaningful connectivity. So thank you so much, Tim. Thank you so much, Maxwell. Hope to see you again soon, and don't be strangers. And I think it's fine to stick around as well for the next section. And I think Donia is going to come on board now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nichole, and thank you for all our guests who joined us today and accepting the invitation. It was a very fruitful and helpful one. And to continue with the last section in the episode, which is the In Focus section, today we will we want to incorporate Wiki Loves Women's Inspiring Open project and focus on an open woman who is Nichole. Yeah,
that sounds a bit funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Nichole, you've worked with open spaces for many years, and especially for open education. So we want to know more about you, and then we will focus more on the open education, the space or the field that you are more experienced. But firstly, we want to know more about you, about the where you are and what brought you to the open movement as a whole.
Sure. Thanks, Donia, and I appreciate the in focus. So, hi everyone. My name is Nichole Saad. I know I forgot to put my last name on the on the title, but that's what it is. And I would say I've been in the open movement for around 8 years since I joined the Wikimedia Foundation in 2016. Before that, my entire career has been in the education sector. So I started as a teacher in 2006. And then, from 2006 to 2016, I worked in school administration, worked in curriculum design. I was a teacher trainer with the Ministry of Education. I went and did my master's in international education, especially related to education and emergencies and education technology. And then I was an education officer at UNESCO Amman office, and I worked on the Syrian refugee crisis education response. And then I came to Wiki, and one of the things about how did I come into open? Well, I think it's quite interesting that I had more than 10 years in the education sector before I ever really had a deep contact with the open movement. And I think that's one of the challenges and one of the issues that we face is when you're trying to talk to teachers about open educational resources, sometimes there's a disconnect because don't quote me on this, but
Can you
when I
engage
was
education with open?
but when I was in the classroom, we just made copies. We took what we needed. That's what teachers do. Like, I'm not going to say that accuse us all of stealing, but when you have a classroom and you need a resource, you make a photocopy. And so teachers aren't necessarily super concerned with Creative Commons licenses, for better or for worse. And I don't think that's the inherent value of open to teachers and to classrooms. I think if you go more on the open pedagogy side of things, that's where you really get a lot of value around rethinking the way that that we interact with content in the classroom. Not just that we have content, but the way that we see it. Do we see it as a static thing prescribed to us that we have to memorize and repeat, have our students memorize and repeat back to us, that we just take these resources that are handed to us from the government or from school administration? Or do we think about content as, the curriculum as something that students should have a say over, that they should participate in, that they should be producers of knowledge, that what they do in the classroom should have value beyond the classroom? So for me, that's the really true value of the open movement in education, is really, helping us to rethink our relationship to the curriculum, to the content that we teach and use in the classroom, and how that can impact learning outcomes. Because at the end of the day, for me as an educator, I'm concerned with learning outcomes. I'm concerned about whether the students that I have or the schools and teachers I'm working with and for have what they need to send these kids out into the world in a way that's really meaningful to them and their communities, and with the knowledge and skills that they need to survive and thrive. So for me, that's the true value of open. And I'm very thankful that I came to the open movement from the education sector, and I was able to participate and to build bridges, because I think there are still a lot of bridges that need to be built between these sectors of practice, like education, health, climate change, all of these different sectors of practice in the global community, and the open movement.
Yeah, Nichole, you mentioned that you you worked 10 years before joining open spaces, and you also mentioned some changes, positive changes in your field after joining open spaces, in your professional journey. But what about your personal skills and your personal journey as well? How joining open places positively changed your character or your relations?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Donia. I think there's a lot of really great values that we have in our open movement that anyone can take and embody and like bring out into the world, like even their friends and families, like, assume good faith is always a good one that you can like apply and transfer to different areas of your life. I think especially around media and information literacy, being involved in the open movement exponentially increases your skill set around media and information literacy, like inherently. And that's like one of the reasons the program that my team created at the Wikimedia Foundation, Reading Wikipedia in the Classroom, was so important to us, because we know that just participating or even learning a little bit about, the Wikimedia movement and other open movements helps people to learn really important digital skills and media and information literacy skills in a way that's engaging and that's easy, like kind of easy entry. It's not like, for example, Wikipedia is a tool that, most people already use to some extent. And so if you use something that they're familiar with to, build on those skills, we call it scaffolding, right? You can say like, okay, you use Wikipedia, but have you ever looked at a talk page? Like, do you know how, like, the conversations that are going on that impact the content that you're reading? A lot of people don't really know how Wikipedia works. And so just getting involved and, learning a little bit about the process. Like, let's forget jumping in and being like a full-time editor. If you just learn a little bit about the community and how it works, you're increasing those like really, really important digital literacy skills. And so I think that was definitely something that I took away from getting involved in the open movement. And I think everyone takes away from getting involved in the open movement.
Yeah. Sounds good, Nichole. Because your maybe field of experience focus more on education, but do you have like another topics in your mind that you believe that it's very essential to take the concept of open to the next level?
To take the concept of open to the next level.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I think one of the things that, I guess the way I'm thinking about taking open to the next level is like, how do we increase the impact of open on the world? And I think one of the things that we really are seeing more of and that we can look at is around policies and policy recommendations. And I think, recently there, I'm going to get the date wrong. I think it was 2018, the UNESCO OER recommendation like really had an impact on how ministers of education and educators see the value of open educational resources, for example. And so sometimes it's like the grassroots feeds the policy and the policy feeds the grassroots. Like they kind of work together to increase access and impact of, technologies and movements, for example. And the OER recommendation helped to legitimize the stuff that was already happening at the grassroots level and kind of force governments to pay attention and kind of report on their use of OERs. And I think that's definitely helpful, but that wouldn't have happened if the grassroots wasn't already happening in the first place, right? So I think, paying more attention to the relationship between what's happening on the ground and the policy, and like having those two sides work together or influence each other is really important.
Yeah. And to dive deep into your current project with Open Collective, Open Learning Collective, because you mentioned that you founded it for supporting education, supporting educators and teachers as well. So why did you thought of emerging an open project?
Yeah,
and the target vision of this project.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things that like really motivated me to start the Open Learning Collective was I saw a big gap between the creation of educational resources and the like the need for open educational resources. So for example, like a lot of companies, a lot of organizations around the world are creating educational content for teachers daily, but they don't know how to apply Creative Commons licenses. They don't know about like open pedagogical practices. For example, like Headspace has a program for teachers. Like lots of companies have programs for teachers and have educational content maybe related to their products or their brands or what their organization does. And it's so easy to make them open, and it doesn't dilute the impact of those resources. It actually exponentially increases the impact of those resources, because now they can be translated, they can be contextualized, which is incredibly important in terms of increasing learning outcomes. Can the content be contextualized? Can it be localized? Can it be translated? So the goal with Open Learning Collective was one to help kind of bridge that gap, and also to build bridges between the open community and the education sector, which is I've kind of straddled that bridge for 8 years now. So and I wanted my personal impact to kind of go beyond just Wikimedia. I know for the folks listening today, that's like heresy. But for me, I had been working just on Wikipedia for like Wikimedia projects for quite some time, and my background is really more in the education sector, and I wanted to do more with working across the education sector, especially get more involved in things that I'm really passionate about, which is refugee education, education in emergencies, and teacher education, for example, are some of the things I'm really, really passionate about. And I wanted to have more time to focus on things that I really cared about. And then some creative projects as well. So I have 2 creative projects that I'm working on right now with Open Learning Collective. One is one you can access right now, which is a podcast that I do with Melissa Guadalupe Huertas, who used to be on the education team with me at the Wikimedia Foundation. She's still there. But there's no longer an education team. So she works in community development. But we run a podcast called Pop Pedagogy, where we watch movies with teachers in them, and then we critique the teaching.
So it's very awesome and inspiring, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
As I watched one of them, yeah.
We have a lot of fun doing it. So it's we thought it was a fun way to try to bring educational concepts, to educators or potential educators, is to look at, like we did a teacher from Harry Potter, we did a teacher from, we did Matilda, we did a movie from this 1970, a Mexican film from the 1970s, which was actually my favorite. It was so good. And so, yeah, we watch the movies, we watch how the teachers are like doing their lesson plans and all of that. And then we kind of critique their teaching and bring forward some of the educational concepts that are relevant. So that's one of the creative projects that we're Open Learning Collective is doing. And the other one is I'm working on a book on education leadership. It's still very much in progress, so I'm not going to announce anything about that, other than I'm working on it, and stay tuned.
Secret, yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's what's going on with Open Learning Collective.
Yeah. I see that you have already started to catch your goals by founding this project, and it's nice to hear that. And it was really very, very awesome to have you, Nichole, for hosting the whole conversation, and to be also interviewing this section as well. Please, if we missed out any topic and you want to raise, just raise it now. We still have some more minutes. If you want to talk about anything related to the open spaces, it's welcome. Do you have anything else?
I just wanted to say, I don't think that I shared the link for the Offline Internet Consortium. That's the organization that hired me to write the paper that we've been discussing today. So I'll just put the link for them in the chats. And if you're an organization that does, that creates offline solutions or does offline advocacy, I would highly recommend to check it out. The report is also linked there. There, is information on a lot of organizations that are working on offline solutions. So that's definitely like a place you can go to get more information about who's working in offline, like what are they doing. One of the things we didn't really get to touch on, which was in the third topic that the report covers, is kind of the 5 areas of the offline, like meaningful internet connectivity offline, which are content, hardware, software, digital skills, and policy solutions. So there's kind of these 5 areas of work. So if you're thinking like, well, I don't create hardware, can I get involved? Like, yes, you can. There's a lot of ways to get involved. Like we talked about a lot in this conversation today, digital skills are a really important part of meaningful universal access to connectivity. Policy solutions are a really important part of that. Obviously, hardware and software are an important part of that, and also the content and having accessible content in local languages is part of that. So we know that these things are all really important to our Wikimedia community, and so there's a lot of ways for you to get involved. So I think I'll end on kind of that point of like get involved. There's a lot of ways to contribute.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nichole, for this amazing facilitating for the whole episode. And thanks for all our guests who joined us today. We actually missed Michael, but hope he can join us in other one. Thanks also for all audience who joined us and was patient till the end of the episode, and you enriched actually the episode with your comments and interaction. So finally, remember to press subscribe button in our YouTube channel and to follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. And for the next episode, stay tuned because we have another interesting and amazing topic about knowledge decolonization. So remember that we have changed the date. It will be the last Wednesday of each month. So mark your calendar and see you next episode. Bye-bye.
WikiAfrica Hour is a production of Wiki in Africa that supports the development of the Wikimedia movement across Africa. We value your suggestions on social media for the topics you want to discuss. We look forward to your participation next month at the same time and on the same channel. Hit the subscribe button to stay open and up to date, and follow WikiAfrica on social media. See you at the next WikiAfrica Hour.